Well, hello, Amanda. Um, Sorry for the delay. I was moving. So yeah, no big deal. Um, but yeah, so I'm just gonna do a little reading for you, and by little I mean it'll probably go on for a while, because I like to dive in. Um, you have a fascinating chart, and so I had to do it justice. So here goes nothing. First of all, you have more planets in domicile than I think any chart I've seen before, which is four of them, but nonetheless, that's a lot. So that means that you have four planets that are in a sign that they rule. So like they can function super duper good in that specific um, sign. So that is a unique advantage, I suppose. But we'll dive into each further as we go. Um, and then there's a couple other interesting things that'll come up as I ramble. But usually what I'll start with is the big three. So we'll do your sun, your moon, and your rising. And then from there, we'll just work our way through the houses kind of one by one, and see what planets show up in the order that they do. We will also see who the chart ruler is. So whatever planet rules the rising sign is the entire chart's ruler and will be extra important for you in terms of where it's placed, in terms of how it's aspected, and in terms of like today what it's doing in relation to your birth planets as it transits the sky is going to be extra influential to you. So I would always keep an eye on that planet. Yeah, okay, so we have the sun at Aries 1 in the 11th house. So the sun is your identity or your idea of yourself. So we're seeing that your yourself, who you are, is intrinsically wound up with your community, because the 11th house is your community. So then the Aries part of it will add a layer of, you're probably in a group or in a communal setting, you probably have a braveness to you, or a leadership maybe role that you may take on, or boldness, because Aries is the ability to act for oneself. The sun is, as a matter of fact, exalted in Aries. So it's not in domicile, it doesn't rule Aries, but it is what's called exalted, which means that it can do a kick-ass job. It's like in its friend's house, basically. And it can do a really good job specifically in Aries, because Mars, who rules Aries traditionally, and the sun get along really well or whatever. So if the sun is in Aries, where Mars rules, it can do a kick-ass job. So you probably very much stand out in a group setting, and not like stick out like a sore thumb, but you probably are kind of the one when you're amongst a crowd. You're probably the one that kind of leads the way, whether that be in an actual leadership role or just in an influential kind of a way. You probably are very forthright in a group setting. We'll keep going. We're going to hop to the moon, but we're going to come back to the sun as it ties into other things, because it's going to be important later. Your moon is in Cancer, where it's in domicile, in your third house. So you are probably incredibly intuitive when it comes to communication. You can probably read a room very well, or read a group of folks, especially those that are immediately close to you. You can probably sense exactly how they're feeling. You can probably read between the lines when they speak. You can probably communicate yourself in such a way that is with depth, or with unspoken meaning. Maybe you're a person that can your close ones to you can read you and know exactly what you're thinking by the face that you might be making. That you can communicate probably in a way that is further than spoken word and communication, because Cancer is lending a deep intuition to your communication style. And then additionally, you probably can like write in a way or exchange information through writing in a way that is also intuitive. Perhaps you can pick up on what a person needs to hear. Perhaps you're able to identify, perhaps you're able to change your communication style so that it fits different people different ways, because you can intuit and empathize with the ways in which they might receive information best. You can probably like fit your puzzle piece to theirs in a certain type of way in terms of communication with folks, because Cancer is empathetic. Cancer can sense things that are unseen. So there's like a, for lack of a better word, I guess, psychicness perhaps to the manner in which you're able to communicate, which is neato. And then again, the moon here adds emotionality to all of this. So the third house is communication, and then you can pick up on people's feelings is the fact that as the moon is here, it means the feelings in your house of communication. And then it's in Cancer where it rules, and specifically the moon versus other planets traditionally like Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter all rule two signs each. The moon just rules Cancer, and then the sun just rules Leo. So that's like an extra, I mean, it doesn't like extra boost it more than it being in a house or in a sign that it rules, but it's just kind of like the luck of the draw. The moon being in Cancer, you got 1 out of 12, versus other ones, 2 out of 12, you know? So that's super neat, because the moon can do its best job at processing your feelings in Cancer. And the fact that it's here in your third house means that you likely process your feelings in a manner that involves communication. You probably like to talk about your feelings when you're having them. And you probably like to do so with people that are close to you, like your siblings or your close friends. That's the manner in which that you must process, is by speaking it probably, or maybe writing it, and then seeing it maybe, and then that's how you better comprehend what you are feeling inside. I'm a Cancer and I love Cancer, so I always like Cancerian things. So that's super cool that your moon is here. So then your rising sign is Taurus. So, and I'm sorry, let me just, the moon, okay, so the sun is your identity. The moon, on the other hand, is kind of like your emotional undercurrent, okay? And then the rising sign is like what you put forth. It's like other people's first impression of you. It's like the mask that you wear when you put yourself forward. Your rising sign is Taurus. Taurus is the sustainer of all, the endurer of all, incredibly strong of the material world. You probably have a maybe a bullheadedness, maybe a little bit about you, that if you have made your mind up about something, it is hard to stop you. Taurus is a fixed sign, so they are, there is perhaps a bit of a rigidity in the manner in which they operate. It's a very slow and steady. Taurus isn't gonna sprint and win a race like that. It's gonna be one foot in front of the other, but never stopping. Like, can move a mountain, but it might take 10 years. But it won't stop. Is very Taurus. I'm actually a Taurus moon. It's not about me, but I'm a Taurus moon, so I love Cancer Taurus. So that's cool that your top 3 also include Cancer Taurus, specifically because I like them for no other reason, though. Taurus is traditionally associated with the values of the second house, which is the value system that you might have. And Taurus is associated with like the things of the material world. So kind of like the tools that you might have, or the resources you might have. That's like a Taurian ideal, because it's associated with the second house. So whereas Aries, which is associated with the first house, which is your sun, is the self is the ability to take action. Then the second house is Taurus, which is then the like, okay, what do you got to work with area. And then Cancer's the fourth, if you're wondering. So we skip over Gemini in your top three, I guess. But so far, we're seeing fire from your sun, we're seeing water from your moon, and we're seeing earth from your rising. So that's a nice little balance you've got going on just from the kind of base level. You know, sometimes folks might have all three of the same element or what have you, which could, you know, maybe bring challenges or bring specific strengths or what have you. Balance, I feel like, is always a good thing, so that's probably a nice start just with that. Now, your sun is in your 11th house, so that means you have a day chart versus a night chart. Yours is a day chart because on the chart, the horizon is the line from the 1st to the 7th house that goes horizontally across the chart, and the 11th house is above that line, so you have a day chart, which means that for you, the planet that is the most beneficial is Jupiter. The planet that is the most challenging is Mars, and then the other two that are in play in this idea of day chart versus night chart, or what's called sexts, is Venus, which is for you, is the out of sect benefic. So the out of sect meaning, for if it were a night chart, it would be the good guy, whereas Jupiter is the good guy for a day chart. Venus is still a good guy, but just not as beneficial as Jupiter. So we'll look at those in a moment too. And then the out of sect, the insect bad guy is Saturn, but the fact that it's insect, which sounds like a bug, but it's not, in the word in and then sect, S-E-C-T, is more like a supportive role rather than being a bad guy or whatever. So we'll look at Mars specifically because he's going to be the more challenging one, and then we'll look at Jupiter specifically because he's going to be the ultimate good guy. But we do need to look at Venus because Venus is your chart ruler. So because you're a Taurus rising, Venus rules your entire chart. Now, again, that's going to be extra important where it is and where it is today. This reading is just about your birth chart, so we're not going to be looking at necessarily where Venus is today, but where Venus is in your birth chart is in your 12th house, which, and it's prior to your rising sign. Now, the chart that you had initially sent me or showed me was using a whole sign calculation for the house system. I generally use the Placidus house calculation method, which is these days seems to be the most popular, and it contrasts to the whole sign house method in that it begins the first house at the rising sign and then forward, whereas the whole sign calculation method just makes the entire first house whatever sign the rising sign is in, and then the rising sign itself falls within that house, whereas the Placidus method begins the first house at the rising sign, and therefore the signs and houses don't exactly line up, which makes things a little more interesting because we'll see here that there'll be a multitude of houses where the house cusp or the first degree, wherever the first degree of the house lands in a sign, is the house cusp and overlays its energy upon the whole house. But we'll see that there'll be a multitude of scenarios where another sign begins in that same house, and then there are placements in that sign. So yes, they'll be in the whatever sign they are is their placement, but they're going to have an overlay of energy, or at least so they say, from that house cusp of a different sign, which kind of adds an extra complexity to things. And really the reason for the Placidus method is that it takes into consideration the Earth's tilt. So like the houses are like the windows of the sky, like separated into 12 quadrants. However, the signs are on the outside of the orbital plane. So the sun and all the planets are on the same plane essentially and go around on the same like level. And then the signs are all on the constellations are all on the outside of that in 12 segments, right? Well, the Earth is tilted slightly. So because of that, using the Placidus method, it takes into consideration that tilt, and that the windows of the sky therefore are a little bit smaller from where the constellations are, depending on where the person was born. If they were born in the northern hemisphere, then some of their houses are a little bit skinnier, and then some other ones are wider for the various houses. So that's, yeah, a whole thing. But yep. So anyways, I use the Placidus method, and so in that method, whereas the chart that you sent me, your whole first house was Taurus, right? And we saw that Venus is in that first house, though still before your rising sign. Well, in this method, we're looking at your rising sign having begun at 15 degrees Taurus, same, of course, because it's the same placement. However, that's where the whole first house starts and then goes on. And then there's part of Gemini in your first house is mostly Taurus, and then there's some Gemini too. Now that means that Venus is in your 12th house in this idea. And I wonder if any of this will ring true for you, and maybe you'll be like, oh yeah, maybe I should use that method, or not that one's better than another. I feel like different ways of using astrology, or different chart calculation methods, or different schools, or different whatever concepts, it all works for you however you come to it. So I always I don't think there's not a right way or a wrong way at all. It's just different lenses of maybe understanding. And I feel like whatever you comes to you, or you come to, is like what is supposed to be for you. So yeah. So that means kind of then, so your chart ruler then is in your 12th house. Now, planets that are in one's 12th house can be perhaps a little bit trickier to tap into their energy, because your rising sign is like your vantage point. It's like where you're looking forward from. So any planets in your 12th house they're behind you. And it's really hard to see all the way around back to the 12th house, essentially. So any planets there, it can take a little bit of an extra effort to excavate them and dig them out than a planet in your first house, for instance. Well, it's right fucking there. So, and then it kind of depends on the configuration of any other planets in the chart, because maybe it's like, oh, well, these other planets added up to being great excavators of being able to dive into that 12th house situation, and it all balances out or whatever. So we'll see as we go. But real quick, let's just talk about Venus there. So Venus rules your whole chart. Venus kind of establishes what your value system is, the things you hold to have beauty, the things that you love, the things you might look for in another person. And we're seeing it's in your 12th house of Taurus. In Taurus, because your 12th house actually has a cusp of Aries. So, Venus in the 12th, just in general, could mean, or it makes me wonder if there's maybe scenarios where other people are able to see value maybe in what you are doing, or just you yourself before you do, because sometimes expressions of the 12th house can be picked up by others easier than it can be by yourself, because again, from that vantage point, it might be harder to see those things, and it might like dictate a lot of like behind the scenes kind of action from whatever these planets might be. Now, so we're seeing Venus here, rules your whole chart, and establishes your value system. So those types of things might be kind of private in your life. You might not necessarily have the ability like to innately at least display such ideals as like beauty and art and love and things like that. Might be just more of a private thing in general for you. You're probably not a person that's like maybe very showy necessarily when it comes to expressing what you hold to have value. And alternatively, it may just be something that might not click super quickly for you, or maybe might take just a little bit extra consciousness to be able to establish, even in the first place perhaps, what has value. Because the 12th house is the subconscious, it's dreaminess, there's confusion there. So it might just take like some real deep diving internally to like be like, okay, what do I value, or what do I love? Might like take some deep pondering, which isn't obviously not a bad thing at all. And in fact, you're probably able to come to a more meaningful, more wisdom-informed definition of what you value, therefore, rather than it just being off the cuff. I guess that's a good astrology pun, off the cusp. Rather than that, it takes probably effort and has maybe potentially additional meaning, whatever it is that you hold to have value, because it might have taken more thought. Now, I'm tempted to talk about another 12th house planet, but I kind of want to save it. So let's just work our way through the chart. I'm going to pop out and check what we have.